Yo, happy Friday, y'all. Welcome back to another edition, another segment of Fantasy Fire and Ice NFL Edition, brought to you by the Sportstopia Network. I'm your host, Steezy A. Smith, and as per usual, I'm not alone. I got my co-hosts with me. Everybody, please welcome Mr. Cody, Carpentier, and my guy at the Fantasy Exec, Corey Parson. How we doing, y'all? How we feeling on this Friday?
Doing fantastic. How we doing, brother?
Yes, sir. Cody, Steezy here. You know what I'm saying? Got my feet up. Feel good about that. You know what I'm saying? Ready to talk some football. Just saw a report came down, right, that Deshaun Watson is not playing this week. Apparently, Deshaun Watson decides when he does and does not want to play. I also heard that Deshaun Watson does not have media availability throughout the course of the week and hasn't talked to the media all season.
Hey.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. Something's going on in Cleveland.
Wait, hold on. Isn't every player obligated?
They're not all obligated, but the quarterbacks, like if you look across all the franchises, I would venture to guess. I'm just saying right now, I would say at least 80% of them, 80% of the quarterbacks speak every week. I would say
they probably go to the podium.
Yeah,
and then a lot of quarterbacks would be on the conference call. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? With the other teams with the beat writers and other teams beat writers. Sometimes you don't get the quarterback, but sometimes you do get the quarterback. I just think, like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. Whatever's going on in Cleveland is not on the up and up.
I was going to say, because if quarterbacks had that option, if I'm Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos, I'm not showing up as much as I can because, my God, what's going on over in Denver? Before we do kick off the show, though, I just do want to remind everybody out there, if you're not already tapped into the Contrarian Edge Optimizer, we got the QR code down there for you guys to try it out. Give it a test drive for 7 days for just $1. And then to everybody out there in the chat, if you have any questions for us, be sure to just drop them in there. I'll be sure to answer them for you guys throughout the show. We're going to start off by talking about Thursday Night Football. We're going to give out some of our takeaways. I want to talk about Russell Wilson. I want to talk about Sean Payton. I want to talk about what's going on over there in Denver. And then we're going to preview some matchups. And then we'll probably end off the show with a couple of lineups, start, sits, fades, bargain bin plays, and whatnot. But without further ado, I want to talk about Thursday Night Football. And the last time Denver beat Kansas City, I was a sophomore in high school. Fast forward to now, I'm a grown man, 24 years old. And they still have yet to be.
You're a man.
I'm a man.
Grown.
At least I'm getting there. At least I'm on my way. I like to think I'm on my way. And so fast forward to now, and the Broncos still have yet to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And so, Corey, I'm gonna pass off the baton to you. What was your biggest takeaway? Fantasy, real life?
Well, the biggest takeaway was Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift go together, right? So Amazon probably gave her a couple dollars to come out to the game last night because why else would somebody be interested in watching Broncos and Bears? I said Broncos and Bears, Broncos and Chiefs. Like I couldn't even really get it right. Here's the deal. I totally go back to week 1. It is what it is. Cameron and Mace. The first Monday of the season, they had Antonio Brown on the show. Most of the time when you see Antonio Brown, you were like, something crazy about to be happening. Let me get out of here. Can't blame you for that. But I sat down there. I was enhanced. And I sat down there. I was highly enhanced. It was nighttime, right? And Antonio Brown said, Sean Payton did a fake punt on the first play of the game, or the first play of the season. He wanted to get Russell Wilson onto the field to see what he had. And he said, and AB said, Russell Wilson is done. He doesn't have it anymore. And Sean Payton is going to tank this season and put Russell Wilson on the bench. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And here we are, a month into the season, and with exactly what Antonio Brown said is happening. Sean Payton, see, this is so interesting. Michael Lombardi this week, right, was talking about the Patriots, and he was talking about Belichick, and he was talking about Sean Payton. And he said both teams need to start over. He said, but at least Sean Payton knows he's going to be there next year. And I immediately said, oh, my God. Now, the host didn't follow up. You know what I'm saying? The host let that slide. Sean Payton is locked into that job. He's going to have his quarterback there next year. Now, the thing in New England, they might have a new head coach next year.
I think they will.
I don't know. I understand. I've listened to Lombardi say this and explain this, but I don't think that I don't think Kraft gives up on Belichick after just one flop at quarterback, right? Mac Jones, he didn't get the guy they wanted in that class as much
Who
as they can
want?
say. It doesn't like
there's really nobody in that class, right?
Well, T-Law's the top, right? And then it was Fields, and then it was Lawrence, and it was Lance. And it's like, what now you look hindsight, it's like, yeah, the only guy you really wanted out of that was Lawrence. And then, if you could do it right, maybe Fields, but he hasn't progressed. The point is that they didn't hit on quarterback in that class that they needed to hit on quarterback in. I think Belichick and what he's done for the last 2 decades is enough to say, all right, one more chance. And the problem is like you mentioned, Denver's going to be bad. Chicago's going to be down there. Minnesota looks like they're going to be down there. No Jefferson, and now Cousins is on he's going to be a free agent in the spring. Those guys are all looking at quarterback as well. The problem is I think that the Bears, the Broncos, the Vikings are all going to be looking at quarterback in front of the Patriots. So you bring up the Broncos with Sean Payton. He's going to be there next year. He also sat on the show with Colin Cowherd a year ago and said that Caleb Williams was a generational quarterback and that anybody should tank for him. Like that's why they should have a lottery systems for guys like Caleb Williams. So I think the writing's already on the board as far as who he wants. The problem is, will he get him? Because the Bears have 2 picks now in the top 5 projected. But I don't know. I don't think that Kraft gives up on Belichick after just one failure at quarterback. Like if you're the 5th or 6th overall pick next year and Kirk Cousins is a free agent and you can get a tackle at 5, a top end tackle at 5, does Belichick go get Kirk Cousins?
Well, I think it's interesting, right? Because I'm starting to think the Jets may try to get Kirk Cousins this year. I can see the Jets trying to make,
especially if Minnesota loses to Chicago.
I agree, but the monetary and the situation, like as far as Kirk goes, like
I feel what you're saying.
Kirk's got a trade clause, and Kirk is a very oriented player where everything's like this, right? And he's been there for 6 years. He was in Washington for 6 years. It's like, I agree with you. I think they should go get Cousins. Cousins, I think, would elevate this team and put them right back in the conversation. However, does Kirk's actual, off-field mantra, does that like translate good for him to be successful on the field? That's my only question. And I don't know if he would be willing to just like say, no, man, I'm cool. I'm going to go mid-season to New York and just see what happens. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, that trade clause does make it interesting. But listen, but if Williams is your son, right?
Yep.
And that you got a dude that can make good money in college next year, right? From NIL, and it's already on every commercial on Saturday. Yeah. And do you look at the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton as an attractive landing spot?
Man, I think there's so much turmoil right now that there's more attractive landing spots. I'd say that. I wouldn't say that they're completely out of the picture. Like, they're definitely in consideration. But I wouldn't look at it as like, oh, that's a top 2, top 3 option for me. But real quick, Cody, just real fast, do you think Kirk Cousins moves the needle for the Patriots? Because we look at the offensive line, we look at the running game, we look at the defense, which has eroded significantly, the receivers. I mean, and Bill Belichick, there's been rumblings about Bill Belichick and whether or not he's going to leave New England. That's been happening since 2019. And so I don't think it's...
Yeah, I agree. I think that you're right, but I do think that he does move the needle as far as past Mac Jones. And I do think that Kirk Cousins has more tendencies that are in line with what the old Patriots regime looked like. Not saying he's comparable to Tom Brady, but I'm saying, like, as far as being a consummate pro off the field, on the field, leader, studying the tape, being like that guy, like Kirk has those traits. And so I think that's something that Belichick would like to have. But also I want to bring up a second. You mentioned Caleb, Corey, potentially going back to school for NIL purposes. There was that situation with Eli and Phillip Rivers, remember?
Exactly.
When he's like, hey, man, I'm not going there. And then maybe they're sitting there and he's like, I'm not playing for the Bears. And that forces the hand of Minnesota, New England, whoever else he wants to play for. Like, if he names off his teams, he's like, hey, trade for me or I'm going back to school.
Well, and then, right, what it is that you can also do, right, in that situation, right, because he's going to try it. If the team is not there, if they don't like the team that's there, they've already said they want no part of the Cardinals, right?
Yep.
So it looks like the Cardinals will be like, all right, we don't want no, we going to win. You know what I'm saying? So you got the Rams who are going to need a quarterback, right? That's Sean McVay. That's right there in LA. You can try to get to a legacy franchise. Would you consider the Denver Broncos a legacy franchise? If he goes to Chicago Bears, he might be their best offensive player ever. Day when he's up in the building, you know what I'm saying? The Bears, outside of Walter Payton, obviously.
Yeah.
So he can kind of move and pick his way around. I don't know if Sean Payton is that attractive to today's younger quarterback. As if you're going to do the Eli Manning thing, Eli Manning worked himself to a coastal team, right? And he won 2 championships. So, all right, that's cool. Now, Hal makes a very good point. I think that's coming down the pipe too, but I think that's the year after with Shador, what Hal is talking about with Dallas. But see, to me, Chicago is a legacy franchise, but is Chicago really? I wouldn't want to go to Chicago. They don't have no history of being, great offensive players. Denver, okay, Sean Payton's there, but does Sean Payton really have it? You know what I mean? So I think it's interesting that but then here's the thing as well. So you say the team is the Broncos, and Caleb says, nah. All right, so now they have, so we'll trade. We'll make the trade. And then they can slide down and they can get a Michael Penix or a Drizzy Drake May or something like that. So it's not all lost if Caleb Williams turns your franchise down.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I just want to shout out Hal in the chat. This is a little older, but he said New England needs a GM that isn't beholden to Billy B. I agree, because him as a GM / head coach in that dual role. When was the last time he had a great draft?
But here's the thing, though. You're always drafting 29, 30, 31,
that's
32.
Tough.
And then you're always trading back. So for 2 decades, your really best talent is coming out the second and third round. It's hard for me to blame this on Belichick.
But even outside of the draft, just like his free agency moves, what he's been making, what he hasn't been making. It's deeper than that, obviously.
Spending dumb money on tight ends and receivers.
Yeah, I don't
not keeping Jacoby Myers. Yeah, the list goes on.
The investments there have just been crazy. But we got somebody here in the chat real quick.
Saquon, Thornton, and all of these guys that year after year is going to be. They don't develop wide receivers. They really don't develop anybody. To be honest with you, who's the best player on their roster?
Best player on their roster.
When healthy, Matt Judon?
Probably was going to say Judon or Christian Gonzalez, and Gonzalez was a player that fell into their lap last year.
There you go.
They both hurt.
Yep.
I want to shout out Randy in the chat real quick. He has a fantasy question for us. So he's asking, can you pick 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, and 1 flex? We got Breece Hall, we got Jerome Ford, Chuba Hubbard, and then Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and Zay Flowers. Corey, you want to attack this first?
I understand the matchup is tough, but I can't sit Breece. I would go Breece. Miles Sanders missed practice a couple times this week. I don't know if he's been out yet. I'd Breece, Chuba for the running backs. Wide receiver, people starting to get down on Devontae Smith, y'all. He could be a good buy low target right now in trades. Wide receiver, I would go Devontae. Wait a minute, really? You're only sitting one person in this whole equation. Only person that you would have to sit would be Ford.
Who's hurt.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, sure. I don't think there's anything else to add there. Before we get back on topic, though, we got Hal saying that trade back crap is bull.
That's Bill Belichick. The trading back.
My bad. Yeah,
trading back to grab mediocre players to bring a bunch of mediocre players into the building.
Man, well, I want to talk about Patrick Mahomes, y'all, because going into the fantasy season, he was a consensus quarterback 1. And I know that the defense has taken a step forward. And so I'm not going to attribute this all on Patrick Mahomes, at least statistically, but he's only had over 20 points per game just twice this season out of 6 games. He's only thrown for 3 touchdowns once out of 6 games. He hasn't thrown for more than 320 yards. Moving forward, is he still the consensus QB1?
No.
Cody, I'll start with you.
No, he's not. I feel like that's been that way for a couple weeks now. Like I'd rather play Hurts or Allen if I was gifted the option, right, as QB1. It's just simply what this offense has become. There hasn't been a pivotal number 1 or a proven number 1. Rashee Rice definitely took that step forward again last night. He's been doing that the last few weeks. Rashee Rice looks like he's going to be the guy that boom, 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 boom. They talked about it during the game last night about how Patrick Mahomes I think it was Steve Smith was talking about it, how Rashee Rice ran a couple routes last week where they were cutoffs that Patrick Mahomes was like, please go this way. But he didn't say anything to him. He was just like telepathy, right? He's like, man, I hope he goes this way. And he cuts the route off and he goes there. And that's exactly kind of what you saw to Tyreek. That's what you see out of Travis Kelce, where these guys just know where Patrick Mahomes wants them to go. So that's going to help. And Kelce, of course, taking that step up. He's getting back healthy. He's getting back to, I don't know. I thought he was getting back to 100% last week, and then he got hurt. Now he's just decided to be, peak Travis Kelce continued. But as far as what this offense has become, it's becoming run focused, and this defense is a gauntlet. And as much as people want to hate on Russell Wilson last night, again, I know I'm not going to defend Russell Wilson at all here, but this defense has been doing this all year, and they had missed Nick Bolton the last 3 weeks, and they gave up 20 points a couple times, and they get Nick Bolton back last night. He gets a pick, big game. This defense is nothing to freaking blink at. Like the Chiefs as a whole, they're going back to the Super Bowl. First off, it's going to be them and the Niners, and this defense and running the football is going to be an entirely different way and a dynamic to look at this Chiefs team, because they're just going to grind teams out. And the messed up thing is you don't even have to imagine when they do get into a shootout. Like, we know that Patrick Mahomes can play in those shootout games with Kelce and just rip him the football. And they got Sky and they got guys that can stretch the field like MVS, even though he's not good. But this is an entirely different football team. If I told you 3 years ago, hey guys, in 3 years, this team led by Patrick Mahomes is going to be run first, and they're going to have a freaking defense that can't be stopped, you would laugh at me. But that's what it is now.
And he's right. That's what they have become. They're a defense first team. You know what I'm saying? And what you see, and this is like a lot of criticisms, a lot of talk about how people talk about athletes, right? Because obviously with Steve Smith last night, and I think what's your man in San Francisco that called Dak Prescott trash earlier this week. If you're in a studio show setting, I don't mind harsh criticism. But if you're on the field in a major network broadcast, probably tone it down a little bit. With that being said, Patrick Mahomes can play hero ball. That's what makes him different than a Dak Prescott. See, with a quarterback like Dak, everything around him, the new Dak, post-injury Dak, has to be perfect. Defense got to be good. Offensive line got to be good. Receivers got to be good. So he can just bang, 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 bang. When he has to make a play, it's not there no more. He's like Tom Brady when he runs now. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, when everybody else is not doing their job, they can take over and get it done. And we've seen Mahomes more and more go to hero ball. Look at his rushing yards. The prop was 13.5 in week 1. It was like 25-26 last night. Jared Goff can't go hero ball, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? But so this is what you see. Mahomes is a quarterback talent who can put the team on his back and kind of go win the game himself, even if Kelce's not the best, because there is that defense there, and he's a legit MVP caliber player. He's an elite quarterback. But right now, to me, the best quarterback in the league is Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
Are we talking real life or fantasy?
Real life.
In real life.
And fantasy.
Even after the year that the Chiefs just had, reigning defending.
I've been very critical. I've been very tough on Jalen Hurts. I am fully bought in now. He's the best quarterback in the league.
Wow. But before we move off of Patrick Mahomes, I do just got to ask y'all, is Patrick Mahomes in fantasy still a locked in top 5 quarterback though? Would y'all go there?
Yeah. I mean, he's a top 5. I mean, he's top 5.
It's really like Hurts over him. That's really it. If you want to say maybe
Allen,
Tua,
I think you can put Allen.
And Allen as well is a guy like that. You know what I'm saying?
But
Allen,
that's like it.
When adversity strikes, Allen is a little bit, you know what I'm saying, can be a little shaky. But those two guys, and then Mahomes, and then you can get into Jackson and Tua and stuff like that. Who would you guys rather have if you was to redraft right now, Tua or Jackson?
Redraft fantasy or redraft in the NFL?
Redraft fantasy.
Oh man,
Tua or who?
Or Lamar.
Oh man,
Tua.
I think
that hurts me to say too, because I've never been a big Tua guy, but that's I couldn't have imagined what this offense would have been. Like, I expected it to be good with Tyreek and Waddle, but I didn't expect like this running game to be like this, and just it just evolved the entire thing it just opened it completely up. So yeah, I'd have to.
Gotta be Tua for now, at least until Baltimore's able to get that pass offense going. Because to this point, I mean, we've seen it maybe once or twice.
Talking about that Baltimore getting that pass offense going forever. It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. Not even towards the end of the year.
Shoddy B can't catch football, man. Would they have 9 drops last week?
I mean,
Something like that.
Dude's tripping and falling. You know what I'm saying? It's like slipping on the turf. It's like it's like
soon as he starts to get the ball up there, they can't catch. Yes,
Baltimore makes a lot of mistakes for a team that's a good team. They can compete. Baltimore's a good team. They can compete with Kansas City. But if they play like they played last week, they're gonna be a short stay in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which has been a constant theme. I lied earlier. I know I said that was the last of Patrick Mahomes, but I wanted to ask y'all one more thing. I know Rashee Rice has emerged or is continuing to emerge, but let's say Kansas City gifts Patrick Mahomes a Mike Evans or another veteran wide receiver. I know in-division trades don't happen too often, but I did hear Jerry Jeudy being floated around to the Kansas City Chiefs as a possibility. If Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were to acquire a receiver of any kind, any caliber at the deadline, does that move the needle as far as Patrick Mahomes' fantasy value?
I think we got to tell the truth about some of these dudes. Like, unless they going to bring back AJ Brown, like, you know what I'm saying? Jerry Jeudy would just get lost in the mix. And trust me,
Rice is better than Jeudy right now.
The first time, exactly. The first time I seen Jerry Jeudy play, I was like, who is that? I'm telling people Jerry Jeudy is a generational talent at wide receiver coming into the NFL. And now I'm like, this ain't the same player. And you can get mad with Steve Smith all you want. And I understand, you know, like I said, Smith probably shouldn't be on the field doing that. But he didn't really tell no lies. Jerry Jeudy he's just the guy. He's just the guy.
Okay, always been a great route runner. Always been a great route runner, and that's what Corey's alluding to. Like, everyone respected the route running, but you got to put 2, 3, 4 things together. You can't just be a one-trick pony. You see that with the deep guys. But to answer your question, Steezy, I want to say this: you bring up Mike Evans, you bring up Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if the in-division trade happens. I also don't think Jeudy elevates this team, like Corey mentioned. Mike Evans, Tampa Bay is pretty solid right now. I don't know if they really want to. I don't know if they want to press that button quite yet, but Hollywood Brown's an interesting one too. That actually brings.
That's an interesting one. Now he could actually be somebody that can make a difference there.
Yeah,
they should have been in on Christian McCaffrey last year.
Oh yeah, what? I guess they weren't trying to give
Baltimore
up.
Should have been on that last year too. Like, Baltimore definitely should have been in on that. It's with Lamar Jackson.
Or even a JT. They could have traded for a JT before he re-signed with the Colts. I mean, I was kind of clamoring for that.
Christian McCaffrey can dominate the middle of the field, and that's where Lamar Jackson likes to throw the football, right? You see, obviously, with Mark Andrews and all of these guys, whatever, that's what he likes. Them drop passes Zay Flowers had last week was in the middle of the field. So there you go. Right. And yet they keep bringing guys like Deshaun Jackson in. It's interesting.
The older vets. Before we move off of Thursday Night Football, I do got one more question. So with the Denver Broncos season spiraling out of control, let's say they trade a Samaje Perine. They're already purging their roster of all these veterans. Do you guys like Jaleel McLaughlin moving forward? Because I do feel like Denver could kind of pivot towards the younger guys. If I looked at your rankings correctly, Cody, I think you had him as a top 20 play this week.
Yeah, I was not expecting as much out of Javonte. Javonte looked good last night. I did have Jaleel at number 20 coming in this week. I like Jaleel. I knew this was a tough matchup, but I thought 20. I was not expecting really much out of Javonte. That's why I had McLaughlin up so high. But as far as McLaughlin goes, like, I don't think Perine's back next year, and I think McLaughlin and Javonte are the two guys they roll with, right? Javonte's still on that rookie deal. McLaughlin, they just found him. Like, that's the diamond. That's exactly why you don't draft running backs in the second, third, first round, is because you find guys like McLaughlin every year that just come up out of the woodwork, and you give them opportunities, and they run the football because they were overlooked and disrespected. So I like McLaughlin. I think he's got burst. He's 185 pounds, upper 90th percentile college dominator, all-time leading rusher at Youngstown State. Like, he can do it. He can play football. He's some mixture of like the Phillip Lindsay, the Austin Eckler kind of area. So, like, I don't think he's bad. I think he's going to be in this offense for the next couple of years.
Shout out to Youngstown State.
Shout out
to the Youngstown boys is probably the best 30 for 30 ever too, in my opinion.
I need to see that.
Oh, it's epic. Youngstown boys is epic. It's epic. Yeah.
Noted. Corey, anything else you want to say about Jaleel or anybody from Thursday Night Football before we move off of that?
No, I'm good with that. Who performed last night? Who performed last night after the Amazon game? Who they had? You know how they always got like nobody.
Oh, I didn't even peep that. Did anybody perform?
They had somebody at halftime. Who they had like a rapper at halftime.
Yeah, I know. Last week they had Dirk. I mean, I never watch it, you know
right.
what I'm saying? But it's like it just be on when I be getting ready to go to bed.
Sure,
okay, for sure. Well, we're gonna move on. So we're gonna preview some games in the Week 6 slate, and I want to talk about that London game between Baltimore and Tennessee. All year long, we always talk about how Tennessee, how their front seven is ferocious. Their back seven, or at least the back end, not nearly as much. They are prone to big plays and big statistical outputs. Is this a get right game for Lamar Jackson and his pass catchers? I mean, you have no choice but to go but up after 5 drops. Was it last week? The total is 42. Who are some players that you guys like in this game, fantasy wise? Corey, I'm gonna start with you.
Jackson Andrews, really. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm every week. My Tajay Spears love grows every week. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting more and more into Tajay Spears. These teams had a rivalry brewing a couple years ago, and now they would take this game and send it over there. My thing is this: I hope nobody get hurt on that crazy cement that they're playing on over there at that Hotspur Stadium. That's about the biggest thing for everybody to get back from out there healthy, particularly Lamar Jackson. But yeah, Jackson, Andrews, Taj. That's really it for me. I'm not a big D-Hop guy.
So it sounds to me like you're fading the wide receivers for Baltimore.
I mean, Zay Flowers is always, an option, but I'm not really that. I think there's other ways you can go. And then listen, in Tennessee, and you can get down the field on Tennessee, and we've seen wide receivers have big games versus Tennessee, but I just don't know if that's in Baltimore's offensive game plan right now.
Cody, before you go, Corey, is OBJ, is he done? Do you see?
I know what to talk about. Go ahead, Cody.
We don't even.
OBJ in his knees, man. I love OBJ, but putting them knees on this turf over here, we're going to see what happens. But Corey, you talk about the stadium. Everyone's talked negative about the stadium so far that's played over there. Did you see the practice field that they were practicing on yesterday?
No, I didn't see it. How did it look?
It's it's like an indoor soccer joint with a 50-yard field. Yeah. And these dudes weren't even practicing. They were just walking around in there. And I was like,
I don't understand why they want to move a team out there so bad. You know what I'm saying? Like you saw what happened last
There's no infrastructure for it. Like they talk about these soccer stadiums being so cool. And it's like they roll carpets out and make these dudes run on freaking concrete.
It doesn't make any sense. You leave a team out there. So they're experimenting with the Buffalo Bills last week. That's basically what they did. And if I was the Buffalo Bills, I'd be pissed off, right? Because you left them out there for 11 days and your experiment to see what it'd be like to fly a team out there on a Friday. You left them out there for 11 days to live and be comfortable. Then you bring the Bills out there on a Friday, and then they lose their 2 best defensive players.
Ambush.
That's not right.
That's not right at all. Before we move off of this game, though, we got Hal in the chat. Can we get some Keaton Mitchell? I know nice. Baltimore's run game, it's been underwhelming to say the least. Is Keaton Mitchell a fantasy relevant play as soon as he's activated, or do you guys see him as a part of a timeshare with Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, or can he emerge as the guy in that crowded backfield?
I think he's going to be a part of the backfield. I think it's going to take a couple weeks for him if he's going to build a role. It's going to take a couple weeks for it to happen. He does have the speed, the athleticism, the 4.3 speed to do stuff like what we've seen out of A. Not saying he's like A-Chain, but he has the ability to do stuff like A-Chain did, do stuff like McLaughlin did because of that burst and that long speed. That all it takes is one crack it, you're gone. And Keaton has that speed and that ability. So again, if it's a guy you want to add, if you have a deep bench in seasonal, in Dynasty, of course, you want to add him. But in seasonal, like if you want to throw that dart, sure, have at it. Like I'm throwing a dart on Chris Brooks this week because of the injuries that have already happened in Miami. Like just throw that dart. That's roster fodder. That's why you do that. So Keaton definitely has the athleticism to do it. They love Justice Hill, though. So he's going to have to outplay him and be good in pass pro as well. But I definitely think he's worth a look.
Hey, Cody, didn't Ravens have a running back that went to school with Ja?
At least as a staff.
They went to what?
They went to high school with Ja Morant. A couple years ago, running back out of South Carolina was on the Ravens. That's not this. Mitchell's a rookie, right?
Mitchell's from East Carolina. South Carolina would have been
running back a couple years ago. He actually kind of got a start. Metro Boomin performed last night on Thursday Night Football. It actually got a start a couple years. It's not a big deal. It just crossed my mind when I saw Keaton Mitchell's name.
I can't think of it.
Where's Justice Hill from? That's not him, though, right?
Justice Hill, no, he didn't. He was from Oklahoma State.
I don't think it's Justice Hill. He been in the league.
He's been in the league for like 5-6 years.
Okay, well, let's move off of that game.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Man, I don't know about y'all, but my this
lagging
Wi-Fi was tweaking out for a little bit. Or
we good.
Yeah, I was lagging again. Okay, we good, right? Okay, let's move off of that game and let's talk about the game with the highest total on the slate. Carolina and Miami at 47.5. Cody, I know you brought up Chris Brooks as a potential dart throw, but with a matchup as ripe as that Carolina Panthers defense, I didn't check to see where you had Raheem Mostert in your running back rankings, but I had to assume he's a top 3, top 5 play this week.
I got him at running back 10, just behind Alvin Kamara. Okay, I don't think that they're going to lean into Mostert fully. I don't think they need to. Really? First off, it looks like Jeff Wilson's going to be back. I also brought up Chris Brooks. Like, this is a game where you brought what's the total? 47.5.
47.5.
So the line is probably 44. So it should be like 44-3. Is that probably the game? 44 would it be a 41 point total, right? So it's 44-3. I'm just kidding. But that's the point. I don't think this is going to be a close. That's the point. I don't think this is going to be a close game. I think Mostert's going to get his run in the first half, and I think it's going to be out of the box. And Jeff Wilson's going to get some run as well. So that's why I don't have Mostert as like a top 5 player, top 3 play this week. I like him, but again, I just don't think Miami's going to go, hey, yeah, Devon Achane just got hurt last week. Let's give Mostert 27 touches. Like, I just don't see that. I don't see that coming down the pipeline.
And then this thing, right? With how is this game going to get over 40? Let's go and be 48-0.
That's what I'm saying.
I know. Carolina's not. Trust me, Carolina's not going to do nothing. And speaking of Carolina, it's like I knew I wasn't crazy, right? What's your man name? The coach, Frank Reich, was in the press conference this week. Talk about David Tepper. And was he's already brought me into the office. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yeah, some orders, I got to talk to him. Yeah, because you ruining the quarterback. Like, I think Bryce Young can play. I don't know if Frank Reich can coach.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like with a Frank Reich, I'm starting to think he's a little overrated. He has some pieces to work with in Indy.
So all they're talking about is like, oh, Jerry Jeudy to the Panthers. I'm like, first off, I saw these people tweeting this last night. I'm like, first off, you just saw a player that they talked to, Steve Smith, like literally monthly, like destroy this guy in national media, and you're going to think that, no, that's not happening. First off, he was also in a similar role to Thielen. They love Mingo. They put him over Terrace Marshall already. They've been doing that since training camp. But the thing that interests me that you bring up Frank Reich is that I remember vividly being at camp this year, and they asked him, what is your goal with this wide receiver room? You don't look like you have a true alpha. And he's like, we got all these different guys that can play in different roles. Everyone's talking about Laviska Shenault playing in this running back 2B role. They're going to use him as a hybrid. They've barely done that this year. Again, he's been lining up in these different roles, but he hasn't done anything. Mingo is a guy that they want to be that X, but he only has a certain repertoire of routes that he can do right now. Terrace Marshall's flopping, but they love him. Thielen is being that dude. Like, this is exactly where they failed, is they thought, and they said this during that press conference I sat there for at training camp against the Jets, and he goes, we don't need an alpha. We have a bunch of dudes that can all do different things and be alphas on their specific plays. They have plays written up for Terrace, for Chark, for Thielen, for Mingo. And they're like, and we have our dude, Hayden Hurst. And we haven't seen Tiddly Squat out of Hurst since week 1. So I think what you're bringing up is the coaching is like they're good at coaching the players, but they're not good at following through and getting the job done on the field. I don't know which part of that is, if it's the players or if it's on the coach, but right now it looks like it's on the coach.
Hey, Tyson Williams.
Oh, Tyson Williams. Yeah.
Tyson Williams. That was him. That's who I was talking about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Is he still in the league?
I don't know about that.
I don't believe so.
He might be on a practice squad.
He might be in the
XFL. Before we move on to the next game, though, we got Rose. Forgive me if I'm butchering. Rose Gilbert, 19 in the chat. Hey, how are you all doing?
Pretty cool.
Feeling great.
That's a Twitch. That's a Twitch. I think Steezy just got again.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, man. Well, let's move on to the next game. I want to talk about San Francisco.
Yeah.
He might be on. Tyson Williams might be on the Cardinals practice squad.
Oh, so I knew it. He was on a practice. He had to be on a practice squad somewhere, right? But Deshaun Watson, he's not going to play.
Oh, Lord.
I'm looking at that 49ers defense. I'm thinking they could pull a week 1 Dallas Cowboys performance in fantasy, 30+ points. Do y'all see that?
Okay, stick with me on this one. Has Deshaun Watson been good enough this year to think that he would move a line or move a number? Do
Has
we
it
really
moved?
think? No, I mean, it kind of went earlier in the week. It was about 4.5.
Yeah.
Right at original posting. Then it jumped up quickly. I'm not sure where it's at right now, right? But Deshaun Watson shouldn't be moving no lines the way that he's played. These other quarterbacks could give the 49ers a better chance. I mean, could give Cleveland a better chance. Here's the thing.
Even a PJ Walker?
Let's not go that far. I think DTR can do some different things, right? DTR can do some different things, right?
You said it was 3.5?
Yeah, it opened up 4.5, right? Where's that now?
I'm seeing 10 here.
Yeah, it's at 10. Deshaun Watson shouldn't move the
gosh.
He's not a touchdown needle mover, I don't think. That line probably should have been down there to begin with.
I don't think Deshaun Watson is that kind of a quarterback that can move a number like that. As far as the game goes, is Christian McCaffrey. You just start there and I go, oh, what about the Browns defense? What about Christian McCaffrey? That's how I'm looking at it right now. And then if you're coming back, I just nothing really intrigues me about this game besides San Francisco getting that win.
And
weather might not be good. Yeah.
I'm thinking their defense could be the best play.
No doubt. It could be. I can see that.
Right. Is there anybody on that Browns team worth starting? I mean, because I think with a PJ Walker, he brings everybody's value down.
Yeah, and Jerome Ford's banged up right now. So I don't really trust like a Pierre Strong role. I don't trust a Kareem Hunt role. Do you trust PJ Walker getting the ball to Amari Cooper? No. David Njoku? No. Elijah Moore, only because maybe they flex. They've been using him out of the backfield and stuff, but like even then, like your output is your ADOT is like 2.5 or whatever it is right now. He's catching the ball majority of the time behind the line of scrimmage. I just don't. There's nothing in Cleveland that really entices me, especially with a PJ Walker at quarterback. So I'm completely off of anything Cleveland related, other than I do like the San Francisco thought. But when you talk about DFS, like what's the price on the Niners defense? Is it probably 4,500, 5,000?
It's probably too high.
I'm not touching that with the 40-foot pole. Like that's just too rich for me when you can go down to the bottom and get a team like Seattle or something like this. So I would much rather go in that direction. On the San Francisco side, I mean, if they're playing a football game, Christian McCaffrey scoring a touchdown. So that's about where I sit with that. But
it's automatic. It's automatic. Well, speaking of Seattle, Cody, let's talk about the Seahawks and the Bengals. I mean, I expect a lot of fireworks. I was actually clamoring for this on Twitter. This should be the real Sunday Night Football because nobody wants to watch the Giants for the fourth time in prime time this year, especially when you got guys injured all over the place. Like, is Saquon going to play? I know he's been practicing.
Saquon Barkley's not playing, son.
He's not playing. There's no point in having him.
Don't worry about Saquon Barkley for the rest of the year.
Don't
get me wrong. He'll be back, but he's not going to be somebody that in fantasy circles is going to make a difference in what we do.
Okay, well, I mean, back to the Seahawks and the Bengals topic. Cody, I'll start with you, but there's a lot of fireworks here. The total is only 45, and so maybe they're thinking that weather could possibly be an issue here, but guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, JSN. I know you talked about JSN in your wide receiver rankings. I mean, there's a lot of things at play here. Cody, talk to me. I don't even know where to start, so I'll just give you the floor.
I like this matchup. Seattle's been good. Seattle's been strong. They're coming off a bye. Cincinnati looked like they got right last week. We'll see if they can double down on that. The T. Higgins thing came out today. That was kind of interesting. He's like, I think I'm going to be dealing with this injury for the rest of the season. That's not the most exciting news you really want to read when you're talking about a 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver that's supposed to be important to this offense. But I like Burrow this week as a middling play on FanDuel. But that's only on FanDuel there. I like Ken Walker on both formats, mostly on FanDuel. I like Noah Fant on both DraftKings and FanDuel. And I like the Seattle defense. I think that's interesting. I can get a good price with those guys on DraftKings. And it's also a sneaky one too, because I think this can go in a multitude of directions. And I like Burrow, but that's because you're just chasing the chase upside. And if Higgins does play, that's what I like that scenario. But I like the Seattle defense because if they do revert back in any way, shape, or form, Jamar Chase talked about these cornerbacks. Like if they lock him up and they force a pick or two, like we've seen that happen, the Seattle defense is nothing to laugh at. They're coming off a bye. I like what Seattle's doing. I'm not going to toot Steezy's horn too much, but I like what Seattle looks like right now.
Yeah, I don't want to what you said, pause. To Steve, I don't want to do that to Steezy either. But what I'll say is this: keep the points, take the money line. Seahawks win the game outright.
Bingo.
Yeah. I love to hear that.
I'm a big Ken Walker guy.
We do got some news on your the Carolina Panthers though.
Oh Lord,
Miles Sanders officially out. Chuba Hubbard will get the bulk of carries against Miami per head coach.
You take that with a grain of salt. but listen, so there you go right there. No Miles Sanders. Boy, I tell you, I got Miles Sanders on some fantasy teams, and every time I look at the roster, I'd be like, man, I throw this computer out the window.
Literally.
I can't blame you, Corey. One more matchup though before we get into some fades, and then we'll wrap up the show. But I want to talk about, because Cody, I know you was hyping up Chicago and Minnesota. This is going to be another game that's expected to produce a lot of fireworks. I know you guys are real high on DJ Moore. I know people have been talking about KJ Osborne as the main recipients in the absence of a Justin Jefferson. And so, Corey, I'll start with you. Do you expect a lot of fireworks? Should the total be over 44?
Yeah, well, listen, these two teams, neither one of them can play defense. Both squads get at it, right? Now, is Jordan Addison playing this weekend?
Right now,
he's questionable. But I think he is.
Did he practice yesterday, Cody? He got a limited practice in, or today?
Not sure about yesterday. All I saw was O'Connell. O'Connell said that they were aiming to get him dialed in, and that he was all gas for this weekend. That's the only last thing I saw.
All right. So if Addison plays, he's fantastic, because you saw that target share when Jeff went out was kind of crazy last week. So Addison's in there. Obviously, KJ Osborne. I can't get behind these running backs. I'll be honest with you. My man TJ Hawkinson, though, could really just get 11, 12 targets this week. You know what I'm saying? This is a good spot for him. And then when you're coming back with the Bears, that running back situation looks like it's a little bit in flux this week as well. But if they're throwing it, it's DJ Moore, and I probably get a little Cole Kmet too.
Okay, I like that.
What's up with Roshan? Roshan, is he good to go?
I want to see today's practice. I mean, yesterday they said he was still not cleared, which is like killing me inside. Misses practice Thursday.
On Wednesday.
Yeah, he didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. And of course, we had the long stretch. Sunday to Sunday is tough for the concussion protocol, but he's going Thursday to Sunday. So,
and he's still not ready.
Today is the big tell. Today is the big tell, because you're looking at this is the 8th day. And usually it's the 7th day that's tough for them. And yesterday was the 7th day if you're tracking. So we'll see what happens. But right now, as it stands, I mean, it's Deonta Foreman. If Deonta Foreman's like that's the angle at running back, I think. And that kills me because Roshan beat him out already. Otherwise, in Chicago, you talk about DJ Moore. He should be able to triple down on his output the last couple of weeks. That connection's there. I don't see why Fields wouldn't continue to push the football to him. And Moore is so much better than anybody else on this Vikings defense. They're not going to be able to slow him down. So in that total, you have to trust Fields as well. On the Vikings side of the football, you bring up Addison, who's limited right now. Love Addison.
Yeah.
But being limited does leave question, because who's Kirk Cousins throwing the football to right now at practice? Hawkinson, he's throwing the football to Osborne, and he's throwing the football to Brandon Powell and Tristan Jackson, another guy that's going to be on this roster or in this lineup on Sunday. Also N'Keal Harry, who I'm not expecting anything from. But Tristan Jackson, if you're in these deep dynasty leagues, the deepest, Tristan Jackson's a guy that was there at training camp, looked fantastic, and he's the guy that kind of fits that exact mold of what Jefferson brings to the table. And he's a guy that, for Viking fans, you remember Charles Johnson from like literally 9-10 years ago, a guy that had like spurts and like, 100-yard game with Charles Johnson. He's the next. No, he's not the next thing, but the opportunity's there. That's the type of thing you could see from a Tristan Jackson out of Syracuse. I think it's his 4th year in the NFL right now. At running back, you bring up Madison. I don't want to touch this right now. Again, he's been fine. He's brought out running back 20, running back 19 the last 2 weeks, but his snaps have went down from 62 to 29 and 36. Akers comes in those 2 weeks, 14-19. Akers finished as running back 33 and 37, and he's completely nuking Madison's receiving work. The routes run for Madison dropped from 29 to 9 and 19 the last 2 weeks, whereas Akers comes in and runs 6 and 7. Like, he's the direct correlation to taking away his routes. So Akers is actually he's borderline a flex play this week in deep leagues where you're starting 3 receivers, 2 running backs, 2 flex. Like, Akers is a borderline flex guy. You're not going to expect much out of it, but opportunity. So I think this is a putrid football game. I think there's going to be points all over, but it's going to be coming from random dudes like Christian Jackson, Deonta Foreman, Cam Akers might like just random stuff like that. It's gonna be like, I don't want to.
I'm not. Scott Hansen, go to the Octo Box. Go to the Octo Box. I'm gonna ignore that game on the Octo Box.
Yep.
Well, that's it for our preview of some of this week 6 matchups. Just real fast before we do wrap up the show, though, I just want to talk about a few start sits / fades.
Let's do it.
Cody, I'll start with you. Do you have any guys at quarterback that you're like, I'm not touching him? He's just a complete fade, a complete sit for me this weekend.
Well, I think you got to roll with the basics, right? Daniel Jones against Buffalo, throwing a pick in every game. That's an easy one. Dak against the Chargers. That's looking like a high scoring game on paper, I would say, right. But I'm not tracking it. I'm not following that. I don't trust what the Dallas Cowboys are brought to the table right now. That's probably as far as the big names go. I love Brock Purdy, but he's going into Cleveland. Cleveland's got a good defense. I don't love the upside that Brock Purdy brings, even though I do think he's a top 8 guy rest of season. I just don't love the matchup this week.
Fades, I don't really see anything as far as fades go. Like you fade the Patriots. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
You fade those teams that can't score. Basically, you continue to fade those guys. That Buccaneer number came in just now. That's interesting. Somebody's betting Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would say this: don't fade the New York Jets. Don't fade Garrett Wilson. Don't fade Breece Hall. And Devontae Smith. I'm telling you, people are down on Devontae Smith right now. If he goes off, he's going to be a problem because he's going to have a big game at some point, and nobody's playing him right now because everybody's on A.J. Brown, and rightfully so. But they seem to be a squeaky wheel gets the oil, and I don't really know if Devontae's going to jump in Jalen Hurts' face. But don't give me. I'm telling you, a crazy Devontae Smith game is coming. Like the Colorado Buffalo.
I like that. It's every freaking week. It's like that. It's like back and forth. One of these guys goes off. One of these guys is mute. Nothing.
Yep.
And Sauce Gardner, I think I just came across like 15 minutes ago. Did not practice today, or was not at the start of Jets practice. So that's something to watch.
Something to monitor for sure. Okay. Well, we got some fades out the way. Before we wrap up the show, I want one must-start player that's flying under the radar from each of y'all. Cody, I'll start with you.
I got a bad one. People are going to hate this, right? So I talked about this on my show on Undercovered Ops on patreon.com/executives. This was one that I didn't expect to even ever be talking about the rest of the season because of the role he was in. Josh Kelly was owned in, this is yesterday when I checked this. Josh Kelly's owned in 32%. 32% of his leagues on Sleeper he was owned in. And I think the number was in like an FFPC. He was dropped in multiple leagues. Like people like forget, like, okay, yeah, he's looked bad as the solo back with the Chargers. But when you rewind back to week 1, the only game that him and Eckler played together, they split the carries, they scored points, and they were both RB1s. Kelly was RB12 and Eckler was RB2. So, and Eckler's talked about this on his show with Matt Harmon every week about wanting somebody next to him. Spiller ain't that guy. Sorry, you ain't that guy. And Roundtree of the past years, like none of these guys have been. Kelly's the guy that's finally doing it and been in that role as a number 2. And Lombardi, you talked about Michael Lombardi before. Like he's talked about like roles in NFL teams. A lot of teams have signified number 2s, right? Madison's a career 2. Chuba's a career 2. Kelly might be a career 2. When they get put into that number 1 role, they just can't do it. The lights are just too bright. But when they're in that number 2 and they have a guy next to him, they can perform. And I think Kelly is that guy. He's been dropped in way too many leagues, and he's a guy that he's a flex play this week. And I talked about it in my article this week on Sportstopia. I had him at 43 at running back, but I moved him up. As soon as I sent that article over, I was like, all right, I'm moving him up. That's my first move. So that's what it is.
That's interesting. That's good stuff right there. Steezy, Logan Thomas.
I love Logan Thomas. And that Atlanta Falcons defense, according to that fantasy against tool that the NFL website uses, they give up the second most points to tight ends. And, man, last week, 11 targets. I love that. Logan Thomas and Joshua Kelly.
I think Washington wins the game.
Okay, I like that too.
Typical.
Well, you guys know what they're saying. Time flies when you're having fun. That just about wraps up the show. Just a few reminders, though, before we do go. Again, be sure to scan that QR code down below to help optimize your lineups moving forward. Again, 7-day test trial for just $1. So be sure to tap in with that. Be sure to follow at Sportstopia HQ on all social media platforms, particularly Twitter. And then for all of our articles, for all of our shows, be sure to head on over to the website at sportstopia.io. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend of football, college, fantasy, real life. That's going to be it for Corey Parson at the Fantasy Exec, Cody Carpentier at Carpentier NFL, and then last but certainly not least, your boy at Steezy A. Smith. Again, have a great rest of the day, y'all, and peace.